An obscure group with no clear origins swept across the Tamil land and dismantled a 600-year social, religious, and political order built by the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas. They ruled for next 300 years and introduced far-reaching changes that changed the social, economic, and political landscape of Tamilakam. This is their story, where they came from, how they ruled, and what eventually led to their decline and the resurgence of the older dynastic powers. By the beginning of the 4th century, the Sangam age of the Cholas, which had reached its peak under Karikalan, was drawing to a close. The steady hand that had tamed the Kaveri River, established strong maritime presence, and expanded the Tiger clan's influence across Tamilakam, was gone. This era, spanning approximately from 300 to 600 CE, is historically designated as the Kalabhra Interregnum. While traditionally described by later chroniclers as a dark age, modern historical analysis reveals it to be a period of significant social, religious, and political transformation. The identity of the Kalabhras, the invaders who displaced the traditional Tamil dynasties, has been a subject of intense debate. Some inscriptions refer to them as evil rulers, or Kali Arasan, who uprooted the established social order. However, these accounts were written centuries later by the Brahmanical elite, who had been suppressed during the Kalabhra rule. Some evidence suggests the Kalabhras originated from the upland regions of Karnataka, specifically around the Nandi Hills and Kolar. They are associated with a military tribe known as the Kurumars. Before their southern thrust, these groups likely held the Tirupati Hills. Another theory suggests that they were non-Tamils from the Nandi Hills, who were driven out of their native lands by the Kadamba king and migrated into south. While their precise origin remains uncertain, what is clear is that they were capable of sustained rule and administration over a vast territory. The Kalabhras did not dismantle the Tamil kingdoms through a single battle, but through a strategic infiltration that exploited the internal instability of the existing powers, which were Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas. When Karikalan came of age, Tamilakam was anything but unified. Beyond the Chola lands lay rival powers equally proud and ambitious. The Cheras controlled the western trade routes and the spice-rich Malabar coast, while the Pandyas dominated the southern plains and maritime links to Sri Lanka. Between and beyond them existed 11 minor tribes, each guarding their autonomy. As Karikalan began asserting his authority, these powers grew uneasy. A resurgent Chola threatened the delicate balance that had allowed multiple kingdoms to coexist. A massive alliance was formed against Karikalan, an extraordinary coalition consisting of the Chera king, the Pandya king, and 11 minor tribes. Their objective was simple. The most profound transformation occurred in the status of the Brahmins. Before the invasion, Tamil society was increasingly structured around Vedic rituals and the power of the landed elite, supported by the Chola and Pandya monarchs, who granted vast tax-free land, known as Brahmadheya, to Brahmins. The Kalabhras effectively halted this system of privilege. They revoked these land grants and stopped the collection of taxes traditionally used to run temple affairs. Later records, written by Brahmins, recall this period with bitterness, describing the Kalabhras as evil kings who abrogated Brahmin rights and uprooted many kings. This led to a significant downward social mobility for the priestly class and the traditional nobility, who were reduced in both position and possession. As the Brahmanical structures were suppressed, The Kalabhras introduced a new religious and social order by becoming staunch patrons of Buddhism and Jainism. This transformation shifted the cultural heart of Tamilakam. Kanchipuram became a global center for Buddhist learning, while Madurai was established as the zenith of Jaina influence. The social transformation was mirrored in the language and literature of the time. The Kalabhras encouraged the use of Prakrit and Pali, northern languages associated with Buddhist and Jaina scriptures, which began to influence the Tamil tongue. However, far from being a dark age of intellectual decay, this period was a golden age for Tamil literature. Many of the most celebrated and immortal works of Tamil culture reached their final form or were composed under Jaina and Buddhist authorship during this era. This includes the twin epics, the Silappathikaram and the Manimekalai, as well as the Thirukkural. These works reflect a society grappling with new ideas of morality, trade, and ethics that differed from the heroic poetry of the earlier Sangam age. Some modern historians also offer a more radical interpretation of the Kalabhra transformation, viewing it as a powerful peasant protest. According to this view, the invasion may have been a social uprising by the common people against the growing oppression of the elites and the heavy demands of the earlier dynasties. By putting an end to the Brahmadheya rites and challenging the landed elite, the Kalabhras may have been representing the interests of the displaced farmers. This explains why they were so vilified in later records written mainly by Brahmins, not necessarily because they were evil, but because they shattered the existing class structure. Politically, the Kalabhras transformed the fractured landscape of the three kings into a more unified administrative bloc. For the first time, the three traditional insignia, the bow of Chera, the tiger of Chola, and the fish of Pandya, were brought together under a single common authority. They divided the country into large administrative provinces known as Nadu, Mangalams, and Urs, creating a sense of consistency in governance that was rare in previous centuries. In fact, modern-day names are derived from these. For instance, the name Tamil Nadu, Tanjavur, are derived from these, and many places in southern India have districts named as Mangalam, often denoting the historical tax-free land granted to Brahmins. For the Cholas, the Kalabhra period marked their lowest point. By the early 5th century, they had almost completely disappeared from the political landscape of Tamilakam. A minor branch may have survived in obscurity at Urayur, but without territorial control or military relevance. Around the 5th century, these displaced royals moved north into the Telugu-speaking regions of Rayalaseema. There they became known as the Telugu Chodas, or Telugu Cholas. They were serving as local chieftains of the Pallavas. Several families emerged in the areas of Nellore, Kadapa, and Konidena, all claiming descent from the legendary Karikalan Chola. This migration turned out to be critical for the survival of the lineage. By operating as subordinates to the rising Pallava power, the Cholas maintained their military training and administrative experience. They managed to maintain a level of social prestige that prevented their total extinction. In fact, both the Pallavas and Pandyas accepted Chola princesses in marriage. For nearly 3 centuries, the Kalabhras had ruled over a politically unified Tamil region. However, their authority rested on military dominance rather than deep-rooted dynastic legitimacy. The Kalabhra rule was fundamentally at odds with the established Brahmanical social structure. This created a deeply motivated opposition among the displaced Brahmin and royal classes, who viewed the restoration of the Pallavas and Pandyas as their victory over Kalabhras. The 6th century resurgence that was to take place was in many ways a religious and social counter-revolution to reinstate the traditional caste system and temple culture. As new powers consolidated around them, the Kalabhras faced pressure from multiple directions. In the north, the Pallavas entered a phase of territorial expansion under King Simhavishnu around 580 CE. His reign marked the transformation of the Pallavas from a regional power into a dominant political force. During his campaigns, Simhavishnu defeated the Kalabhras and extended Pallava control southward up to the river Kaveri. This campaign brought the former Chola heartland under Pallava authority. Simultaneously, in the south, the Pandyan king Kadungan ended the Kalabhra rule in the Madurai region. He is also credited with establishing the first Pandyan empire and restoring the triumph of Brahmanism over the evil Kalabhras. While the Pallavas and Pandyas advanced from within Tamilakam, the Kalabhras also faced pressure from the Deccan. The Chalukyas of Badami, under rulers such as Pulakeshin I and his successors, were expanding from this side and towards areas held by the Kalabhras. By 600 CE, the combined military efforts of these forces erased the Kalabhras from the political map. With the end of Kalabhra rule, the Pallavas and Pandyas undertook a systematic restoration of Brahmanical institutions. This process defined the late 6th and early 7th centuries. Tax-free land grants were reinstated on a large scale. Temples were rebuilt. The caste system, which had weakened during this period, was formally reinforced through inscriptions and ritual practices. The period also saw the rise of the Bhakti moment, which prioritized individual devotion. It led to the emergence of the Nayanas, devotees of Shiva, and Alvars, devotees of Vishnu. These saints composed fervent devotional songs in Tamil, making religion more personal and popular among the masses. Even new local tribal gods were incorporated into the Brahmanical hierarchy to provide them with Vedic legitimacy, which carries on even today. For example, the popular local deity Murugan was identified as Subramania, the son of Shiva, and the protector of the Brahmins. A divine hierarchy was established in temples, where supreme gods like Shiva or Vishnu were placed in the center, surrounded by smaller subordinate deities, mirroring the worldly feudal social structure. The period also saw the physical manifestation of Brahmins through the construction of monumental stone temples. Earlier temples, which were made of perishable materials like brick, mortar, or wood, were replaced by grand structural stone temples. Temples also became central nodes of political and economic life, serving as banks, schools, and land managers, which helped create a new religious order in the rural economy. Sanskrit became the official language and the language of the elite. But the Bhakti movement ensured that Tamil remained the primary language of religious expression for the common people. This transition was not simply religious. It was a political strategy that allowed the new rulers to legitimize their authority by aligning themselves with already established social hierarchies. The period to follow opened a new era of Pandya Pallava achievements. However, the Cholas had to survive without any ruling powers. They served as military officers, governors, and local authority under stronger rulers. They retained their lineage, memory, and administrative skill, but not power. And the Cholas remained in a position of subservience and continued in the shadows as minor feudatories. This long period of obscurity set the stage for one of the most dramatic political comebacks in Indian history. 250 years later, another king emerged who restored the Chola pride.